the obvious question. We're talking here about email. There's all of these new sexy distribution audience gathering mechanisms. Stacker's one of them, maybe.
Sure.
You guys are doing email.
Yes.
Why?
Okay, so let me just be clear. Email is not sexy at all. Nobody goes home to their spouse and says, honey, I heard a really great chat or a really great panel about email. Just does not happen.
Setting the bar low for
yes,
14.
Yes, I'm not managing expectations here. That being said, all the channels that were meant to kill it, or, every year somebody says email is dead, email is dead. RSS came and went, organic social, push notifications. Here we are at email. And so it survived every algorithmic shift, every platform collapse, every privacy hurdle that's been thrown at it. I affectionately refer to it as the cockroach of marketing and comms. It has survived it all. And I think that in a world where it's gotten harder to reach your audience, we've seen that. I spent some time at Meta and I had courtside seats to, hey, one day I have 1 million followers, I post, I'm used to 800 or 900,000 people seeing it, 80-90% is pretty good. And then a bunch of executives get in a room, they make some decisions, and they flip a switch, and the next day, why is my organic reach gone down to 10%? Email is a pretty great hedge against that, and that's why we're hyper bullish on it as sort of like one of the core vectors that we've built towards as we build the future of the content economy and empower creators, publishers, and brands to own their relationship with their audience.
Okay, so I think most people that are familiar with beehiiv think of creators. They think of individuals that started with a newsletter. You guys have launched a platform that has more than that with podcasts and other pieces. But you guys were really interested in sponsoring this conference. And then when I talked with you, I realized, oh, you have customers like Ramp, Brex, Time, Newsweek, Kalshi, Vice, media companies.
Yep.
And so I guess just to maybe a little bit, I'm just curious, and also to tee you up, like, why are you winning brands like that? There's Substack. Yep. There's obviously 10 other options to build it to yourself. Like, why are you guys winning deals with companies ranging from Brex to Vice Media?
Yeah, and maybe I'll give you the evolution. So we certainly started in the creator space, and I think that's been our bread and butter since the day that we launched. As we've grown up with our customers, I actually think there's been this really interesting convergence between what is a creator and what is a media brand. Is someone like Oliver Darcy, who is also a journalist, throw that in the mix, who has multiple millions of people on his list, and is actually larger than some traditional quote unquote media companies. Is that a brand, is a creator? Who knows nowadays? So there's been that convergence. We've grown up with them as they've gotten more sophisticated and their needs have grown. I think that caught the attention of some of the quote unquote middle market publishers that you may not talking about the Wall Street Journals and New York Times of the world, but maybe go 5 rungs below. And then eventually, I think accidentally, the software got so good that the Times and Newsweek's, TechCrunch's, Vice's came knocking and said, hey, we have people that are building emails on Salesforce Marketing Cloud. Sorry to anybody who's here from Salesforce. Or they need an engineer to hold their hand to code an HTML template. And it's taking a lot of time. It's not purpose-built for a content-first motion. And we need something else. And that's what's enabled us to win a lot of deals and go up market. Why we were interested in sponsoring this specifically is because I think we're now on the 3rd rung of that evolutionary life cycle where brands are wisening up and are saying, hey, this owned audience motion, having your own editorial newsroom, crafting really compelling content to pull people in, whatever we're using is more purpose-built for life cycle, marketing comms, really rigid templates, really, really tough workflows to navigate. We just want a really easy drag and drop builder to build content-first comms to reach our audience and not have like 50 people trying to figure out like why the HTML is breaking and why this looks like crap on mobile.
Do you see, I guess, when you're out there in the market, working with media companies, working with brands, building media companies, Do you see Substack as kind of this us versus them? Because I do feel like every time I talk with beehiiv, you guys sidestep oh no, it's not, we're very different than Substack. And so can you speak to how you think about the ecosystem for email?
What's Substack? Yeah, we've heard of them. We've heard of them. Yes, we get compared to them all the time, and people I think are often under the impression like, oh yeah, it's like a Coke and Pepsi type of dynamic. Your team Substack, your team beehiiv. I actually think what they're building is a fundamentally different product, especially as they've started to gate more content behind the app and are moving towards more of like an algorithmic feed. And we actually see them competing more with like a LinkedIn X Threads type of product. The mental model that I always go to is this Amazon versus Shopify analogy, where we very much see Substack as Amazon, right? Like when you guys go to buy something on Amazon, are you looking at like the little blue URL that says the seller name so you can like see who you're buying from? Like, no, you're buying from Amazon. The package comes in, or whatever you bought comes in like an Amazon wrap box. When you have a problem with it, you go to Amazon support. Like Amazon owns that relationship. And that's very much how we see anybody building on Substack, where you're really just building their brand and you're building on land that you're renting, not owning. We see ourselves more as like a Shopify, where we're the infrastructure powering people to build whatever it is that they want to build. There are hundreds of thousands, if not millions of Shopify stores out there where you have no idea if they're built on Shopify. There's no branding. It's all running in the background. And that's really what we want to achieve. We want to be that invisible infra layer that runs in the background. I obviously want everybody to hear of us, but we don't want to be seen. We want you to build what you want to build.
So let's change gears a bit. ROI it's one of my big three. And a lot of conversations we've had, a lot of the rhetoric coming out of beehiiv is around helping draw direct outcomes from your newsletter. Yep. And so I'm curious if you could just speak a bit more to that. What does that mean if I'm in the room and I could be Hone Health or TripAdvisor or the Points guy? Like, what does that mean to help me draw direct outcomes from my newsletter? And what are you guys doing in that space?
Yeah. And I caught Jonathan Hunt on the way out, and we had a quick stick on this just to validate my thesis around it. I asked him if everything mapped back to marketing qualified leads, and it did. So I think about it in two pillars. I think there's pillar one, which is just sort of like the table stakes. Like we have a blog, we have a newsletter, we have content, we need to get it out to people. That is like the foundational check the box. Like you have a publishing calendar, you have this regular cadence that you're getting content out. That's great. What really interests me is actually mapping it back to real business outcomes and ROI. And I spend a lot of time talking with our customers to really understand how they're using the platform. And the short of it is that people are super, super creative with how they drive ROI from their email newsletter program. Brex, for example, has a really large go-to-market motion that's fueled by events. I think they do something like 550 events a year. And they're trying to get decision makers in the startup ecosystem, CFOs, VPs of finance. Like candidly, selling a corporate card or a financial product is not like the most sexy thing to do, just like email. And so getting people together under the guise of, happy hour, panels, dinners, getting like-minded people in a room, that really works. So the way that they leverage newsletter is, yes, they have a lot of storytelling and narrative building that they're bringing to market, but they're also actually leveraging it to drive RSVPs to these events. And that's how they pack a room every time they throw an event, which I love. I'm like, hey, that's great. Now, the harder part to do is like, okay, tie those RSVPs to actual MQLs that then materialize in qualified pipeline. And it's like this many dollars. And I think you sort of touched on it in your chat with Jonathan, where it's like, it's a long burn. And I totally agree with that. Another example that really stood out to me through some of like the customer diligence that we've done is Rally Road is one of our customers. They're like a collectibles marketplace where you can buy like dinosaur skeletons and Rolexes and all sorts of crazy things. Literally the unlimited amount of cool content you can build around that, right? And as we dug into it with them and their growth folks and their data science team, some really interesting things emerged where people who engaged with the newsletter and opened it and read it regularly, I think invested something like 2 to 3x more than those who didn't. selection bias aside. It was a huge lever for driving app downloads. And it was also one of the best ways that they drove first deposit volume to get people to make that first investment. And this is totally separate from what they were doing with like life cycle and marketing comms, which they're also doing. But I think because if it was interwoven with the content, it made it like a much more natural feeling form factor to just be like, oh yeah, this is really cool. I'll check out this thing instead of like, here's a 20% off promo code, buy now. And I think the people who really get that, get it. But yeah, it takes a little bit of work to really map and attribute the ROI, and very grateful to the growth and data sci folks that are willing to work with us on the customer side to really draw those outcomes.
Those are two very different ways of thinking about ROI. Are there any other companies that, again, there's companies from like every B2B, B2C. Is there anyone else that comes to mind of, oh, this is an interesting way that people are mapping ROI?
Yeah, I think RSVPs, qualified pipeline, deposit volume. An interesting one is Kalshi, where they're leveraging their newsletter to like highlight what's happening. They're kind of leaning into the news and being like, okay, bet on this thing. And they're using it as a strategic lever to drive wager volume on the platform, which is like pretty cool. And I think that's like it's sort of a less direct sell, but I think it's really cool to say, hey, the Strait of Hormuz closed. Here's the market on it. And then like some other content versus like, hey, deposit $100 and place your first wager. I think just some of like the story around it resonates more with their customers and their audience. And that's been a really, really big success for them to date.
Great. You see a lot of newsletters launch. I'm sure you see some newsletters stop, fail, whatever,
sure,
unlaunch. If someone's going to launch a newsletter, if people are already in the room running newsletters, why do these things fail? Why do they get killed?
Yes. I think there's a couple things. So one, I think if you are just putting out AI slop, it's undifferentiated, it's content you can get elsewhere. And it's not candidly just driving value to the reader or the end consumer. You're going to see that in your engagement metrics. And that's actually a lot of what we see. There was like this time where you could just run an arbitrage business, spin up a newsletter, have Claude write it for you. I think that a lot of that will go away. What I think everybody in this room, and this is why we came to this event, I get super excited about all of y'all because at your respective companies, you're sitting on so much interesting proprietary data that the New York Times or the Wall Street Journal can't leverage to tell a story or build an interesting narrative around. Like if I'm Ramp and I've been collecting corporate spend data for the last 5 years, there's probably some really interesting insights that I can pull from that a reporter from the New York Times is just not going to be able to do. And I also have the benefit of being able to control that narrative. And it's not a direct sell to like, hey, here's like the top 10 vendors, or here's like the top 10 strip clubs that people are expensing on Ramp. That's like not, that's not necessarily it. But I think that it is like a really differentiated way to cut through the noise, because attention is currency nowadays. And to combat a lot of the slop, I think it has to be truly differentiated. And because all of y'all are sitting on this gold mine of data, I would be leveraging that to power the newsletter and really driving a lot of this like data-driven storytelling.
Okay. Got a couple minutes left. We're going to rapid fire some questions.
Okay.
Best day of the week to send your email.
Ooh, best day of the week to send your email. I'm sure we have data to support it. Back in my growth and lifecycle marketing days, it was 12:15 a.m. because you got the night owls you got 12:15 a.m. basically any day of the week besides like a Friday. You got the night owls who are still up grinding away, and then you catch people top of the inbox first thing in the morning.
Is there a day of the week that matters?
I think it depends what you're publishing. Let's go Tuesday.
Great.
Hey, write that down.
Straight from the POMA database. How do I send my newsletter once a week, twice a week, daily? How do I think about that?
Send it when you have something to say. If you have nothing to say, don't just send it for the sake of sending it. And that's actually a trap that I see a lot of people fall into, where it's like they commit themselves to a cadence. They're like, I have to send something every single day. Well, don't. If you don't have anything to say, don't just send me like a blank email with slop and 3 banner ads. It's just like not that valuable. And I don't think you have to uphold yourself to the standards of like a traditional newspaper where people are expecting like a daily edition, or, the channel 10, the 10 o'clock news where you're expecting something at the same time every day. If you don't have enough content to fill that pipeline, don't put that pressure on yourself. Send something when you have something to say.
Excuse me. Last question. I think a lot of the problem I see when we're talking with companies that have newsletters is the only people reading their newsletter are their customers, because people come into their website, they sign up, and it's valuable, but they would like other people. I task you, you have 3 months to grow a newsletter. What are you doing?
Yeah, update your terms of service and auto opt in your leads into your newsletters. That's off the record. That's off the record. No, I think you had a slide earlier about just different ways to grow audience, and I think that all of those still ring true. Like posting on the social channels is still super, super valuable. I think appearing in SEO, AEO, GEO is still, a great way to do it. I think that also just optimizing your digital real estate for email capture is something that I actually see people not do super well, where it's like a lot of the sites that I go to, it's like, hey, I think this company has a newsletter, but I literally can't find a place to sign up for it. Like why is it buried? You can't get people to sign up for it if you don't give an opportunity to do it. And that's actually like the biggest thing that I see, where it's like you have a lot of great digital real estate, just optimize it for capturing that email.
Great. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you. Appreciate it.